James Rapien kind enough to join us. James, before we get into the Bengals, thanks for being with us today. How much are you hearing about this whole turf thing? It seems to be getting some pub around the NFL, a certain kind of turf, not natural turf. And there are different variations, I guess, for lack of a better term, of this synthetic turfs. Have you heard much about that or heard players talk much about that? I know it's been in the news, from time to time nationally, but anybody around the Bengals talk much about it?
Not a ton. Yeah, I know Joe Burrow was asked about it, and he said, and this was, probably a month ago when it came to the surface and was a topic and kind of a big topic. And he said he didn't mind turf because he feels faster on it, but he understands why players want the same surface everywhere and why every field, you'd want to have the same surface. So I get that. I also get the gripe about maintaining grass because a lot of these grass fields, right? The Steelers game in Pittsburgh, that field was not ideal, to be quite honest with you. So I think there's a mix. At the same time, when a guy like Kyler goes down, right, one of these star quarterbacks, I think it's going to not that it didn't already have the NFLPA's attention, but I think it's going to get more attention and become an even bigger topic.
All right, James, let's walk player by player here. Excellent win for the Bengals. We talked about exercising the demons that are the Cleveland Browns. They had lost 5 in a row. They win the game convincingly. Didn't look so great in the first half, but got it going. Defense has just been fantastic all year long. Let's start with Trey Hendrickson. He had the most serious injury, I guess theoretically the most serious injury, because he broke his wrist. He came back and continued to play in the game. What are you hearing about his status moving forward?
I think he's going to miss a few games. Zach Taylor didn't want to rule him out for this week. I think that's some gamesmanship, some hope, some prayers, anything you could say about the idea of Hendrickson playing this week. I just don't see it. Now, maybe I'm dead wrong and he heals fast or heals fast enough to where they can wrap that thing up and he can play. But to me, I think he's going to miss this week. I think he's going to miss a couple of weeks. And just looking at the way the schedule aligns, Tom, that January 2nd game, it's Monday Night Football. Right now you have the Bucs on Sunday, going to be a tough turnaround 6 days later, rather, short week against the Patriots on the road. That Buffalo Bills game, January 2nd, you get an extra day. It's a Monday Night Football game, so Saturday to Monday. And so you get an extra day of rest there. I think that will be their goal date for Trey Hendrickson. It's good that they didn't put him on injured reserve, so I do think we could see him back in the regular season, and why not bring him back for a matchup primetime that could have huge, huge ramifications in the AFC playoff picture.
Hayden Hurst.
Doesn't feel like he's going to play this week. It was in a boot last week and, can walk without it, but I think they're trying to, much like Jamar, take the pressure off of that injury like they did with Jamar and his crutches. He could have always walked without him, right? But he was non-weight bearing for 4 weeks. Well, I don't know if Hayden Hurst is there, but they certainly want to take pressure off of that calf. I don't expect him to play this week.
Okay. Tyler Boyd, second play of the game, dislocates his finger. Yeah. Did I hear somewhere on the radio yesterday somebody say that finger broke through the bone, broke through the skin? Is that accurate or inaccurate?
I've seen comments. I didn't hear it directly, but I've seen comments that Dave Lapham might have said that, and it would align with what Zach Taylor said, which is they had to flush out the finger. Well, why would you have to do that if it was just dislocated and put back into place? And so if you're doing that to prevent an infection, well, then there you go. So that does align. I didn't hear the comment specifically, but I saw people say that Lapham said that, and he obviously has great insight all the time. So if that is true, I don't expect Tyler Boyd to play this week. And, you had a lot of YouTube commenters and people saying, oh, just pop it back in and send him back out there. Well, Tyler Boyd's a tough dude. If he could have went back out there, he would have. So I do think it's more serious than we realize, much like the Mike Hilton finger injury before the Carolina game, where it was like, oh, yeah, he got hurt against Cleveland, but he'll be good to go. And actually, it was broken in 3 places. He had to have surgery, and they had him rest a week. So we'll see with Boyd. I do expect him to be back at some point this season, but he might miss a game or two.
And then lastly, and maybe I'm missing something else. Well, no, I guess Osai injured his shoulder. And that could be a big story moving forward the rest of the week because you're not going to have, it doesn't sound like you're going to have Hendrickson. And so, you need somebody to try and get after the passer. Shoulders, and we'll get to T. Higgins in a minute, like hamstrings, but shoulders are one of those things where, okay, you might get yourself right leading up to the game, but I mean, one hit in the wrong spot, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah, and Osai did return, which is a good sign, but they might have to brace it up, and have him wear something so it doesn't pop out again, assuming that's what it was. And that's what it looked like from the sideline, or from the press box, rather, when he ran to the sideline. Is he was holding his arm, it was dangling there a bit. And, you fast forward a few plays and he's back in the game. So hopefully he can go because they're going to need him, and they need him to be a disruptor off the edge without Trey Hendrickson. And that's much, much easier said than done to fill those shoes, right, of Trey Hendrickson. And they don't necessarily need that, but they need someone not named Sam Hubbard to get pressure off the edge regularly. And naturally, Joseph Osai would be the guy. So we'll see on him. We don't have a ton of information on him, but you're right. The shoulder injuries are weird, and they can pop out at any time if you do suffer, a dislocation and it pops out of the joint there. So we'll see how he progresses this week. Hopefully he can suit up on Sunday.
I don't know about you, James, but the one that concerns me the most, look, at the end of the day, people don't want to hear it, but it's the truth. I mean, like Boyd's situation, as long as you're not facing an infection, you can shoot that thing up before a game and knowing Tyler Boyd, you're going to get out there and play. I mean, that's just the way the world works. People may not like hearing it, but that's the way the world works. He could probably go do it and would take a shot, numb it up, go play. Is the Higgins thing, because this is a guy clearly who is such a dynamic force and an unbelievably productive player on this team. Hamstrings, they appear to be worried about it. Where are they? Where are you from what you hear on this thing?
You should be worried about it because this team is not the same team without T. Higgins. And that's just what they're facing right now. Now, Trent Irwin, Trent Taylor, they've made plays, and Joe Burrow's superhuman and can do that and make plays with those guys. And we've seen that. But when you're talking about making a run at the 1 seed, you want T. Higgins out there. And there's going to be stretches and lulls. I can't believe the Browns played Jamar the way they did the other day. I would have put 3 guys on him, and I would have said, okay, someone else win. And I think that's what Tampa should do this week if there's no Tyler Boyd, no T. Higgins. So it's important to have T out there. Hamstring, he wanted to play according to Zach Taylor. Seemed fine all week and then popped up on the injury report. Hamstrings linger. And so I think it is smart by this coaching staff to hold him out, and hold him out of that game, a game that they clearly thought they could win without him. This Tampa game, this is almost a woodshed game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you've seen Tom Brady long enough, we all have, to where they should come in desperate. And it's hard to knock out a desperate team that had high expectations coming into the season. Even as bad as they've been, they might not be as bad, especially at home this week. So having T. Higgins, that'd be huge for Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, anyone you want to talk about on offense. So we'll see if he can go. But hamstrings are weird. And we're going to have to monitor whether or not he can practice, if he does practice at all this week. And even if he does, for the fantasy footballers out there, have a backup plan, because obviously we're not sure how it's going to respond, what's going to happen on game day. I will say this too, Tom. At least it's warm this week.
Yeah.
It's not like he's going to struggle to get that going, get stretched out, get loose. So that part will help him playing in Tampa, I believe.
Anything else going on down there that we should be aware of? I mean, obviously you have your podcast, you have daily updates on everything going on. Anything that we're missing here leading up, at least early in this week? I know they had the day off today, but anything looking forward to the rest of the week?
No, I think they're a really confident team. And if they have to go to Tampa without Boyd, without Higgins, without Hendrickson, it's 3 huge pieces. 3 of your 10 or 12 best players?
Sure. Hendrickson's
probably your 3rd or 4th most valuable. And so to not have those pieces, it's a big loss. At the same time, the guys, they're going to think that they're going to go in there and slow down Brady, which, by the way, they've scored the Bucs, the fewest amount of points in the NFC South. So as bad as that division is, it's crazy how bad they've been on offense. So that's noteworthy as I start to look ahead to Sunday's matchup. But no, I think that they're rolling at the right time, and we'll see if, because they're going to be shorthanded. It just depends how shorthanded. We'll see if they can keep it rolling. But they're certainly confident, no doubt, going into Sunday.
Before we let you go, I want to ask you about the Cleveland-Baltimore matchup this weekend. I think we all agree that, Deshaun Watson, when he played against Houston 2 weeks ago, his first game in like 700 days, something along those lines, he didn't look great, but he looked a lot better last week against the Bengals than he did in his first game. From what your sources are in Cleveland, and you used to work up there for a while, are they all in on competing the rest of this season?
Yeah, no doubt. I think they are, and I think that, once that suspension came down, it was, all right, Jacoby Brissett, hold the fort down for Deshaun to come back, and then hopefully Deshaun can help you sneak into the playoffs. And I think Brissett did his job. Obviously, Watson was just much more rusty than they anticipated, and they have more holes than I think they anticipated. Going into that Bengals game, I think it was clear that the Bengals had the better roster, even though they were shorthanded and lost Higgins after one play, essentially lost Boyd after 2 plays. They were the better team with the better quarterback, and the reason the Browns went after Deshaun Watson is because I think they looked around the division and said, "All right, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow." We're not going to beat those guys with Baker Mayfield. We got to make a move. And so that was as much of a future play as it was for this season. I do like that you brought that up, though, because why not lose more? And they still might with Deshaun Watson, but lose more this year, get a better draft pick, and move on. Well, they might not have their first rounder now that I think about it. They probably don't. They probably send it to Houston. So they might as well compete their tails off, honestly, because there's not much they're getting out of it otherwise.
Were you not in shock? Look, there's stuff that goes on around the league, and I've never been a coach, and it's easy for me to sit here and not Monday morning quarterback, but quarterback while it's going on. Been a lot of talk, as there always is on any coach, when teams don't meet expectations. Kevin Stefanski up there in Cleveland, I think he's one game over 500, if I'm not mistaken, during his third season there as a head coach. But when you're sitting up there in the press box, in that opening drive, they're going down the field. And all of a sudden, on 4th down, they take Watson, who they've been waiting on for 12 weeks to play in a game, and they take him out of the game on a 4th and 1 and put in Jacoby Brissett. Were you in as much shock, or maybe some of the guys that cover Cleveland that were sitting around you? I don't know if you had a chance to talk to them about it. Were you or any of them just in shock by that move?
Yes, 100%. Because the game script and the way the game started, it was all Browns. It was injury to Boyd, Hilton's limping and on the sidelines, Higgins that only plays 1 snap on the first drive. In the first 2 plays, Watson hits Amari Cooper, then Chubb runs for a first down, and it's like, all right, 3 and out for the Bengals, multiple injuries, Browns starting to roll. You want that momentum. And so I get going for it, and I probably would have went for it. You want to seize momentum, get out to an early lead, get after Burrow with Myles Garrett and company. Makes sense. The Jacoby Brissett idea, if you're going to throw it like that, that's insane to me, 1. 2, if you are going to put him in, and I thought about this, I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe they're bringing him in for a quarterback sneak because you don't want $230 million guaranteed sneaking it right now. Maybe he's better with the hard count at this stage just because he's had more reps with this offensive line, a backup center, all of those things that go into, maybe that's the case. But to just drop back and throw it, I would not have done that. I think it was a bad call, not necessarily a bad decision to go for it. And you do have Deshaun Watson for a reason. I would have tried to get him on the edge maybe, or, hand it to Kareem Hunt. That could have been another option. But you have Watson for a reason. And can you even imagine? And I know Brissett isn't Brandon Allen, and he started most of the year, and Burrow hasn't, taken 700 days off before, 8 days prior. But there's no way you do that and throw the ball deep down. I hated the decision or the call at least, but I didn't mind the decision. And Kevin Stefanski deserves plenty of criticism for that, because I think if they get that first down, they probably score a touchdown. and that game might have been much, much different given the history between these two teams.
Lastly, do you think Stefanski, and there's been just so much unrest and upheaval in that Browns organization, all the way from the top and then, the football people and all the way down to multiple head coaches, and we know about the quarterbacks, blah, blah, blah. Do you think Stefanski is back next year?
That's a tough one because a lot of coaches do not survive. And it's just what happens up there, and you get caught up in it, and it is hard to stop that momentum against you. Now, I will say he's dealt with a lot. Baker getting hurt last year, huge injury that cost them. I thought it was a talented roster. This year, you have all the Deshaun Watson drama. Ultimately, I think they wait. They give him one more year, but they have to make a postseason run, I would say, next year. Otherwise, you're talking about one playoff run in 4 seasons, and he's going to enter next year on the hot seat. So I do think he'll be there. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they pull the trigger early, but he's going to have to start winning, and it's going to be hard to win because, like I said, Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow are in your conference, and we know are in your division, and we know how competent the Steelers are, even with a young quarterback.
All right, James, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it each and every week, and have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you up with you sometime soon. Thanks again.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Thom.
All right, James Rapien, kind enough to join us each and every week. We really appreciate his time and his insight as to what's going on.